Assalamualaikum and good morning to respected lecturers and friends. So, to begin with, education is something all of us go through every single day. But let's be honest, sometimes it doesn't feel exciting at all. It feels tiring, repetitive, and even boring. I know this because I used to feel that way too. I used to be a very lazy student. I didn't enjoy studying, and I always thought that education was just something I had to do. I would sit in class, but my mind would be somewhere else. I wasn't interested, and I didn't see the point of learning. Then one day, something happened that I will never forget. I accidentally fell asleep in class, and of course, my teacher noticed. She woke me up and told me that I should not be sleeping in class and that I needed to start taking my education seriously. It wasn't said in a harsh way, but it was firm. It felt real. And at that moment, I felt a little embarrassed, but more importantly, I felt awakened. Her words stay with me. I started thinking about myself, my attitude, and my future. That small moment became a turning point in my life. And from that day on, I decided to change. I started paying attention in class. I tried to understand what I was learning instead of just ignoring it. At first, it wasn't easy, but slowly, something surprising happened. I began to actually enjoy learning. Subjects that once felt boring started to make sense. Lessons became more interesting. And for the first time, I felt curious. I even reached a point where I couldn't wait to find out what I was going to learn the next day. And that was when I realized something important. Education doesn't have to feel like a chore, it can feel like an adventure. And adventure is not always easy. Sometimes it is challenging, sometimes confusing, but it is always meaningful. It helps you grow and discover new things about yourself and the world around you. Education works the same way. When we change the way we look at learning, everything starts to feel different. Instead of seeing it as something forced, we begin to see it as something valuable. And the problem is not always the subject. Sometimes it's our mindset. When we think learning is boring, it becomes boring. But when we give it a chance, when we try to understand and explore, it becomes something much more interesting. And I learned that curiosity makes a big difference. When I started to care about what I was learning, I naturally wanted to know more. I didn't just study for exams anymore. I studied because I wanted to understand. And that feeling is powerful. Another thing I learned is that making mistakes is actually part of the process. Before, I was afraid of getting things wrong. Even raising my hand in class was difficult for me. That fear made me avoid trying. But when I started to take learning seriously, I understood that mistakes are actually helpful. They show us what we don't know yet, and they guide us to improve. Every mistake is actually a step forward. So, how can we make education feels more like an adventure? First thing first, we need to change our attitude. We need to stop seeing education as something that only gives us homework, stress, and sleepless night before exams. Sometimes students treat learning like a punishment. The moment teachers give assignment, we react like our lives are over. But education is actually preparing us for life little by little. Every subject teaches us something important. Mathematics teaches us how to think logically. Science teaches us how the world works. History reminds us about the mistakes and achievements of people before us. Language helps us communicate our thoughts and feelings. Even subjects we dislike are still teaching us patience, discipline, and problem solving skills. When we start understanding the purpose behind learning, education feels more meaningful. Second, we need to stay curious. Curiosity changes everything. A curious student does not only learn because they are forced to, they learn because they want answers. Sometimes all it takes is one question. Why does this happen? How does this work? What will happen if we try something different? That curiosity turns learning into discovery. And of course, being curious about learning, not gossiping, because let's be honest, some people can remember every detail of celebrity drama, but suddenly forget everything 5 minutes after class starts. Curiosity makes the classroom more alive. It pushes us to explore beyond textbooks and slides. It encourages us to read more, ask questions, and think deeply. And the more we discover, the more interesting learning becomes. Third, we should not be afraid to participate. Many students stay silent because they are scared of being wrong. I used to feel the same way. Sometimes I knew the answer in my head, but I was too nervous to speak. I worried that people would laugh at me if I made a mistake. But learning was never about being perfect. Imagine going on an adventure but refusing to move because you are afraid of taking the wrong path. You will never discover anything new. And the same thing happens in education. So, you see, we grow when we try, speak, ask questions, and sometimes even embarrass ourselves a little. Those moments help us become more confident and knowledgeable. Teachers also play an important role in making education feel exciting. A good teacher can change a student's life with just a few words. Sometimes students do not remember every lesson, but they remember how a teacher made them feel. Supportive teachers create an environment where students feel comfortable learning. They encourage students to ask questions, share opinions, and improve themselves. In my case, my teacher advice was simple, but it opened my eyes. She did not just wake me up physically that day. She also wake me up mentally. Friends and classmates also matter. Learning becomes more enjoyable when we support each other instead of competing in unhealthy ways. Studying with friends, discussing ideas, and helping each other understand lessons can make education feel less stressful and more enjoyable. An adventure is always better when you are not alone. Most importantly, we need to remember that education is not only about getting good grades. Yes, grades are important, exams are important too, but education is bigger than numbers on paper. Education teaches us how to think, communicate, solve problems, and become better individuals. It helps us understand ourselves and the world around us. Sometimes the lessons we remember the most are not even from the textbooks. They come from experience, failures, conversation, and challenges. That is why education is a journey. Thank you. Lepas tu, stay. Kalau tidak ada lagi tu, tapi kami macam dah 10 minit dia. Ada tutup belum? Tak tahu.